Here's the problem. We're given a circuit element. It might be a resistor, an inductor, we don't know for sure, and a time-varying current entering its positive terminal. Along with that, we're given two different voltage scenarios. The task is to calculate the power delivered to the element at a specific moment, t equals 3 milliseconds. The current we're given isn't constant. It follows a cosine function. But before we dive into the math, let's pause and ask, where do waveforms like this actually come from? It all starts with circular motion. Picture a particle moving in a perfect circle around a point. The particle stays the same distance from the center at all times. That distance is the radius, r. What does change is the angle it makes as it spins. Now imagine we track the vertical distance from the center of the circle up to the particle. We'll call that distance h. As the particle moves around, this h keeps changing. Why? Because the angle theta between the particle and the horizontal axis is always shifting. At any moment, that vertical distance is given by h is r times cosine theta. Now here's where it gets interesting. If we plot h over time, what do we see? A smooth, continuous sinusoidal wave. This graph captures how h varies as the particle spins, and since theta is tied directly to time, we're really seeing how the motion unfolds every step of the way. Now let's say our particle is spinning around the circle at a steady rate, a constant angular velocity, which we'll call omega. Angular velocity simply tells us how fast the angle is changing with time. And since velocity is always distance over time, in this case, it's the angular distance divided by time. So, to find the angle the particle has swept out at any moment t, we just multiply omega by t. Now let's plug that into our earlier equation for vertical distance. Since theta equals omega times t, it becomes h equals r times cosine of omega t. And just like that, we've transformed circular motion into a time-based function, a classic cosine wave in action. Now let's figure out how long it takes the particle to complete one full circle. That time is called the period, and we'll label it t. Since one full rotation is 2 pi radians, and angular velocity is defined as omega equals 2 pi divided by t, we can rearrange the equation to solve for the period. T equals 2 pi divided by omega. This tells us exactly how long each cycle lasts, and from that, how often it repeats. Now let's ask a simple question. How many cycles does the particle complete in 1 second? That depends on how long one cycle takes, which we just called the period, t. The number of cycles per second is known as the frequency, labeled f. And since frequency is just the reciprocal of the period, we get f equals 1 over t. Earlier, we found that t equals 2 pi divided by omega. Plugging that into our frequency formula gives frequency is omega divided by 2 pi. Rearranging that gives us a super useful relationship. Omega is 2 pi times f. This equation links angular velocity with frequency, an essential connection when describing any sinusoidal wave. Now let's plug that back into our time-based cosine function. We started with h equals r times cosine omega t, and now it becomes h equals r times cosine 2 pi ft. The equation shows how circular motion creates a smooth, wave-like pattern. And here's the crucial part. This same formula models any quantity that varies sinusoidally with time, like alternating current. It's a fundamental tool in understanding how AC behaves in real circuits. Unlike a battery, which provides steady one-way flow, AC constantly reverses direction while its magnitude rises and falls smoothly, forming a sinusoidal pattern. This behavior perfectly matches the waveform described by y equals r times cosine 2 pi ft, where I represents the instantaneous current, IP is the peak current, and F is the frequency. To better visualize AC, we often imagine it as the projection of a point moving in a circle. This circular motion helps us understand how voltage or current fluctuates in a predictable, wave-like manner. So why does all of this matter? Let's bring it back to our problem. We're given a current described by a sinusoidal function. Right away, we know this is alternating current, AC. To analyze it, we compare it to the standard form. We see the peak value is 5 amps. To find the frequency, we match the argument of the cosine, which gives us F equals 30 Hertz. That means the current completes 30 full cycles every second. Each cycle lasts about 33 milliseconds. This gives us a complete picture of the current waveform, and that's essential for understanding how it behaves in any AC circuit. The current is defined by a cosine function, so we can easily plug in the time to find its value at that instant. At t equals 3 milliseconds, the current works out to about 4.22 amps. Since the peak value is 5 amps, this makes sense. It's just slightly below the maximum. Let's look at part A first. Here, the voltage is defined as V equals 3I. Notice anything familiar? That's Ohm's law. V equals IR, which suggests this element is behaving like a resistor. We already calculated the current at T equals 3 milliseconds as 4.22 amps. Substituting that in, the voltage comes out to, voltage is 12.66 volts. Now that we have both voltage and current, finding the power is straightforward. P equals VI, which gives us 53.42 watts. This is exactly the kind of response you'd expect from a simple resistive element. No surprises here. Now let's look at the second scenario. This time, the voltage is defined as the derivative of the current. If you've worked with inductors, this should sound familiar, because that's exactly how voltage behaves across an inductor. It's not about the amount of current, but how quickly that current is changing. So, this element is likely acting like an inductor, but we don't need to know that to solve the problem. First, we calculate the derivative of the current. Then, we plug in T equals 3 milliseconds, and the result might surprise you. The voltage comes out to around negative 1,516.32 volts. Yep, over 1,500 volts, even though the current only peaks at 5 amps. Sounds wild, right? But that's exactly what happens with inductors. Since the voltage is proportional to the rate of change of current, a fast change, especially a sudden drop, can create huge voltage spikes. That's why inductive components like relays or coils need flyback diodes to safely deal with those unexpected voltage surges. Now let's calculate the instantaneous power. We already know both the voltage and the current at T equals 3 milliseconds, so we just use the same formula, P equals V times I. Plugging in the values we get, P equals negative 6.396 kilowatts. That negative sign is important. It tells us that, at this moment, the element isn't consuming power, it's giving it back. Just like a compressed spring snapping back, the inductor releases energy into the circuit when the current starts to fall. And that's it. We saw how circular motion leads to AC waveforms and used that to calculate power in resistive and inductive cases. Sometimes power flows in, sometimes it flows back out. If you found this useful, like and subscribe. See you next time.